Tanya said you and her going out to eat today.
You better not be filming me, I swear to God.
September 13th, 2024. A woman walks to her car outside a Georgia courthouse. Her ex-husband's truck idles 30 feet away. She doesn't see him yet. In her purse, a protective order signed 2 days ago. In his hand, the reason she begged a judge to arrest him. The judge said no. Gave her paper instead of protection. 90 seconds. That's how long Crystal Evans has left. 2 years of warnings. 2 years of Facebook posts saying, "If I die, he did it." 2 years of calling police. And now, in a courthouse parking lot, the one place she thought she'd be safe, every word she wrote is about to come true. But the question that will haunt this case: who failed her first? Welcome to Viral Crime Psychology. To my loyal subscribers, I pray your families remain safe and protected wherever they are. If you're new here, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Here, we bring you the untold details of true crime cases, the facts others leave behind, and the truths that deserve to be heard. Today, we explore what happened when a woman's worst fear became reality, in the one place she thought she'd be safe. Crystal and Tom knew each other as children, same small town, same Georgia streets, the kind of familiarity that makes falling in love feel like destiny instead of choice. 1997. They married, started building a life together, T&K Contracting Incorporated, their names side by side, a construction company in Griffin that grew from a dream into a thriving business. Crystal managed operations. Tom handled the builds. Together, they created something. On Facebook, Crystal shared it all: the family vacations, birthday celebrations with their children, business milestones, new contracts, completed projects, the satisfaction of work well done. From the outside, she had everything: the successful business, the family, the marriage that survived rough patches, because there had been rough patches. Tom had affairs, multiple women over the years. Each time Crystal found out, each time it broke something inside her, and each time she chose to forgive. In 2020, she posted about it publicly, a testimony of faith and restoration. "God restored our love," she wrote, a declaration that they'd made it through. That forgiveness had won. Her followers celebrated with her, praised her strength, her commitment, her faith. But what Crystal didn't tell her followers, what she was only beginning to understand herself, was that forgiveness was becoming impossible. Because the truth she was about to discover would make every affair with every woman look like a surface wound. Tom Mallory, contractor, father, respected businessman in Griffin's tight-knit community. Everyone knew about the affairs with women. Crystal had been public about forgiving him. People admired that, saw it as a testament to the strength of their marriage, their faith, their commitment to family. What they didn't know, what Crystal herself didn't know for 27 years, was that Tom was living an entirely separate life. The money from T&K Contracting began disappearing. Not all at once. Slowly. Transfers Crystal didn't authorize. Expenses she couldn't account for. Cars purchased under the company name. Vacations charged to the business account. Expensive gifts. None of them for Crystal. She started asking questions, following the trail, confronting Tom about where the money was going. His answers didn't add up. And then, piece by piece, Crystal started to see the full picture. The relationships he'd been hiding, the men he'd been involved with, the double life funded by the business they'd built together, by her labor, her trust, her forgiveness. The women had been betrayals. This was something else entirely. On August 2024, Crystal would make a decision that would crack open Tom's secret world for everyone to see. She would post the truth on Facebook, and from that moment forward, her life would be in danger. August 14th, 2024. Crystal Evans sat down at her computer and typed the words that would end her marriage, and put a target on her back. "I did not realize when being down low, you brag on being a top or bottom man, or one holds more weight than the other? I am so confused. Why is the one at home always the last to know? Out here buying men cars and stuff. I guess I was on the wrong team." She hit post. 27 years of marriage, gone. Exposed in a single Facebook update. The response was immediate. Friends reached out in shock. Supportive messages flooded in. People couldn't believe it. Tom Mallory? The contractor? The family man? But the most important reaction was the one Crystal couldn't see through a screen. Tom's rage. Crystal filed for divorce. After nearly 3 decades together, after building a business, raising children, surviving affairs and financial struggles, it ended because of a truth Tom had spent years hiding. What Crystal didn't know in that moment, what she couldn't have predicted as she watched the comments and messages roll in, was that exposing Tom had just signed her death warrant. And I need to ask you something. Should Crystal have stayed silent for her own safety? Or was speaking her truth the right thing to do, no matter the cost? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Tom didn't just lose a wife when Crystal filed for divorce. He lost control, and he was determined to get it back. The man Crystal had known for 27 years vanished. What replaced him was something colder, more calculated, a stalker wearing the face of her husband. He followed her, everywhere, to the store, to appointments, to pick up their children from school. He didn't hide it. Wanted her to know he was watching. He followed their children too. Crystal posted warnings on Facebook. "Tom, stay away from us. You are a sick man. Leave us alone. This is sad. Please leave us alone." But Tom wasn't done. He stole her car, just took it one day. Crystal called the police, filed a report, and eventually got the vehicle back. The first thing she did, had it repainted? She couldn't stand the thought of driving something that still carried traces of him. Then came the business equipment. Trucks registered to T&K Contracting vanished. Crystal posted videos showing law enforcement helping her recover them. Her life was becoming a public record of Tom's retaliation. But it got worse. Tom started selling their shared property. Without her consent, without her signature. He allegedly forged a deed to their house using a stolen notary stamp. When confronted, he made a threat that would haunt Crystal. Their daughters would only inherit the house if something happened to her. If she was harmed. He cut off her utilities, water, power, internet. Forced her to live in the home they'd shared without basic services. And then came the detail that crosses the line from harassment into something far more disturbing. Tom crawled under the house, positioned himself beneath the floorboards to eavesdrop on Crystal's conversations. Then he'd taunt her later with things he'd heard, proving he'd been listening, proving there was nowhere she could speak freely. For 2 years, Crystal documented everything. Monthly posts, sometimes more. Her Facebook page transformed from family photos and business updates into a public diary of terror. "It's sad that I have to walk around terrified for my life and my children's," she wrote in one post. "I know if something happens to me, please know who did it. This man has said numerous times that he is going to harm me. I am posting and trying to leave a paper trail. This man is extremely dangerous." She was building evidence, creating a record, making sure that if the worst happened, everyone would know exactly who was responsible. But the question that would haunt this case was simple. Would anyone read that paper trail in time to save her? August 2024. Crystal Evans walked into the courthouse and filed for an emergency protective order. She brought everything. Screenshots of Tom's threatening messages. Witness statements from people who'd heard him make threats against her life. Police reports documenting the stalking, the theft, the harassment. 2 years of documentation, all compiled into evidence that should have been impossible to ignore. September 11th, 2024. Judge Benjamin Cooker reviewed the petition. He granted the protective order. Tom Mallory was now legally barred from coming within 500 yards of Crystal Evans. 500 yards, the length of 5 football fields, a buffer zone that existed only on paper. Crystal stood before Judge Cooker and said the words that should have changed everything. "I need more than a piece of paper. My life is in danger. Please arrest him." She wasn't asking for convenience. She was begging for survival. She had documented threats, witnesses, a pattern of escalating violence and stalking. Everything the law claims to require. Judge Cooker refused. Instead, he told Tom to turn himself in voluntarily, gave him the dignity of surrender on his own terms, treated a man who'd been stalking and threatening his ex-wife like someone who could be trusted to follow the rules. Let me ask you something. At what point should judges have the power to immediately arrest someone based on credible threats? When documentation exists? When witnesses come forward? When the victim is standing in court begging for protection? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Days passed. Crystal posted again on Facebook. Another warning. Another attempt to create a record that might outlive her. "Please know if something happens to me, Mallory did it. This man is dangerous and I am documenting everything to leave a paper trail." Her daughter, Precious, called the sheriff's office the day before the attack, reported Tom's stalking behavior, explained that her mother was terrified. No action was taken. The protective order sat in a file. The documentation gathered dust, and Tom Mallory remained free. Friday morning, Spalding County Courthouse. Crystal Evans arrived with her daughter Precious and a friend. They were there for Tom's probation hearing, required attendance, the kind of legal obligation that forces a victim to sit in the same building as the person who's been threatening to kill her. Precious left early, had to go, couldn't stay for the entire hearing. Before she left, Crystal made a request, asked for a deputy to escort her to her car when the hearing ended. A simple precaution, the kind of thing that should be standard procedure when someone has an active protective order against a violent ex-spouse. The request was never fulfilled. Crystal made a decision. She would wait inside the courthouse until Tom left, stay in the building where there was security, cameras, deputies, wait until he was gone, and then she'd walk to her car. Smart, cautious, exactly what someone in her situation should do. The hearing ended. Tom walked out. Crystal waited, gave him time to leave the property, to get in his truck and drive away. When enough time had passed, Crystal and her friend headed for the exit. She pushed open the courthouse doors, stepped into the September heat, walked across the parking lot toward her silver sedan. What Crystal didn't know, what she couldn't see from inside the courthouse, was that Tom had never left. Surveillance footage would later show his truck, already positioned, parked with a clear view of the lot, engine running. He'd been waiting, watching the doors, planning his approach. Crystal had 48 hours of legal freedom. Tom had 48 hours to plan her murder. And now, as she walked across the parking lot with nothing but a piece of paper in her purse, those 48 hours were about to run out. Tom's truck sits 30 feet away. He's been there the entire time Crystal waited inside, watching the entrance, waiting for her to appear. Crystal walks toward her car, reaches for her keys. Tom moves. The attack happens in seconds. Everything Crystal predicted, everything she documented, everything she begged people to prevent. Deputies are inside the courthouse, so close they can respond within moments. But moments are too late. Crystal falls in the parking lot of the building that was supposed to protect her. Tom flees, gets in his truck and drives. Police pursue him through Griffin's streets. The chase ends when Tom turns the weapon on himself. He survives. Critical injuries but alive. Crystal Evans dies at the courthouse. Deputies rush out, try to save her, but the damage is done. The protective order is still in her purse. 500 yards of legal protection, 2 days old. She made it 48 hours. She died steps from the door, steps from security, steps from the system that promised her safety and delivered only paperwork. The community demanded answers. Sheriff Darrell Dix provided excuses. He said the previous domestic calls involving Crystal and Tom were mutual disputes, as if being stalked, having your car stolen, and fearing for your life is somehow mutual. As if Crystal's 2 years of documentation showed anything resembling equal aggression. He claimed Crystal never directly asked for a deputy escort that day, but she had requested one, before Precious left, Before the hearing ended, the request simply wasn't fulfilled. Precious Evans spoke out, furious, grief-stricken, demanding accountability. "We called the sheriff's office the day before, and they did nothing. My mom was terrified for her life." The day before, not weeks earlier, not months ago. The day before Tom killed her, Crystal's daughter called law enforcement and reported active threats. Active stalking, active danger. No action was taken. The community erupted. Social media filled with outrage, not just grief, but anger at a system that treated Crystal's murder as inevitable instead of preventable. Sheriff Dix's response? Defense. Justification. Explanation for why his department couldn't have done more, why the calls weren't serious enough, why the threats weren't credible enough, why Crystal's fear wasn't valid enough. Here's what I need you to think about. When law enforcement says a victim didn't directly ask for help, where's the line of responsibility? If a woman spends 2 years posting public warnings that she's going to be killed, if her daughter calls the day before, if there's a protective order in place, how direct does the request need to be? Share your perspective in the comments. The protective order sat in Crystal's purse as she died. A piece of paper, a legal document with zero enforcement, a promise the system never intended to keep. Because here's the truth this case exposes. This wasn't just a murder. This was a system failure with a body count. Crystal Evans left behind children who will never stop asking why. Traumatized, furious, demanding answers from a system that has none to give. Precious watched her mother document threats for 2 years, called law enforcement herself the day before the attack. Did everything a daughter could do to save her mother's life. She left the trail, clear, detailed, public, and it was ignored. The question no one can answer: how many calls is enough? How many posts? How many witness statements? How many times does a woman have to say, "He's going to kill me," before someone believes her enough to act? Tom Mallory survived his self-inflicted injuries. He's alive, in custody, facing trial for murder. He will get his day in court, legal representation, due process, all the protections the system offers. Crystal got 48 hours of freedom and a parking lot grave. That's the exchange. That's what the system decided was fair. Crystal's story isn't unique. Every year, women are killed by partners and ex-partners despite having protective orders. The numbers are staggering. Research shows that in domestic violence homicides, a significant percentage of victims had sought legal protection before they were murdered. The gap between legal protection and actual safety is measured in bodies. A protective order is a piece of paper. It requires voluntary compliance from the person it's meant to restrain. And when that person decides compliance doesn't matter anymore, the paper becomes meaningless. What needs to change? Judges need the power and the will to order immediate arrests when credible threats exist. Not suggestions to turn yourself in voluntarily. Arrests, custody, removal of the threat before it becomes a murder. Mandatory deputy escorts for victims leaving court proceedings involving their abusers. Not requests that may or may not be fulfilled. Standard protocol, non-negotiable. Better enforcement of existing orders. Active monitoring. Check-ins. Consequences for violations before those violations turn fatal. Crystal Evans did everything right. She documented the abuse, posted it publicly, called law enforcement, filed reports, got witness statements, obtained a protective order, begged a judge to arrest Tom before he killed her. She followed every piece of advice given to domestic violence victims, every step the system tells women to take to protect themselves, and the system failed her at every single turn. Her story has to mean something. Her death cannot be just another statistic, another case file, another woman who should have done more, according to people who weren't listening when she did everything. Crystal's memory deserves more than thoughts and prayers. It deserves change. Real change in how we protect victims of domestic violence, how we enforce protective orders, how we respond when someone says, "He's going to kill me." Because Crystal said it, over and over, for 2 years. And on September 13, 2024, she was right. Crystal Evans spent 2 years screaming into the void. What would you change about protective order enforcement to actually protect people? Not in theory, not on paper, in practice, in reality. What needs to happen so that the next Crystal Evans survives? Your answers matter. Drop them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to stay updated for more true crime stories that will leave you speechless. And remember this: if someone is documenting their fear publicly, if they're leaving a trail of warnings and pleas and predictions about their own death, believe them before it's too late.